David won against Goliath, not by might, not by brawn, but by coming into that fight with precision, force, and a technological advantage. We need you to do the same thing. We need you to walk into that arena with the technological advantage of the sling, right? And we need to plonk a stone straight onto the forehead of your competitor, taking them out of the fight immediately. Let's dive into today's video. Today is all about David versus Goliath, how you as a startup founder can take on your biggest competitors, how you can win their customers and take the money out of their bank account and put it into your own. This is a repeatable process that you can take on time and time again that I have seen work time and time again. So how do we do it, and why should you even listen to me on this topic? I've been building fast growth, disruptive startups for the past 10 years as a UX designer, a product manager, and even a developer myself. I have scaled products to the millions of annual recurring revenue. And for the past 4 years here at Minimal Viable Launch, we've helped hundreds of founders just like you take on big competitors and win time and time again. So I've seen this work, and I'm going to teach you the process for making this work. Most founders react with fear when they finally do the dreaded Google search and they actually start to seek out the competition. They think they have a unique idea. They have that blue ocean territory where they are not going to have any competitors, and they find it. It is a multi-million-dollar company. There's hundreds of employees. It is a 900-pound gorilla that they're going to enter a fight with. And so many founders react with fear to that. They think there's no way I can win this fight. Ironically, I have a very different reaction to that. When they find their competition, I am most excited. And I'm going to tell you why I'm most excited. But if I'm going to teach you to execute this playbook, this David versus Goliath playbook, I need to instill 4 pieces of knowledge into your brains. I need to tell you why I get excited when we find competition. Competition is your validation that your idea can work. I need to tell you about how you choose the right giants to slay. Okay? We don't want to take on all fights. We want to take on very specific fights. I'm going to tell you about how you find product prisoners. This is the key to making this all work. If you can't find product prisoners, we're in trouble. But I know you can. If you have big competitors who have been around for a long time, there is 100% product prisoners in their customer base that we can steal. We can break free from that prison. And I'm going to have to tell you about how you choose your battlefield and execute this strategy in a smart way, just like David did to beat Goliath. Okay, let's dive in. So, competition is your validation. That fear that you feel about your competition is the thing that holds you back. So many founders are looking for a space to compete where there's no one else operating. That makes me incredibly nervous. It makes me really nervous because it's really hard to have a truly original idea. There are over 8 billion people on this planet. Someone, somewhere, has suffered the problem that you have discovered. They've probably thought about a solution to it in one way, shape, form, or another. And so when we identify markets when there's truly no competition, unless you're coming to me and saying, I have created a technological breakthrough, things are now possible with my technology that were not possible before. If that's not the case and you think you have no competition, that is a time to have pause for thought, because it's likely that people have launched businesses into that space before, but they've gone out of business, right? And that's why there is no competition in the market at that point. So when they are at the point of maximum fear, when they discover this competitor, when they do that Google search that we mentioned earlier, I get very, very excited because it is micro validation that your idea is possible. If a team, if someone somewhere out there has built a multi-million-dollar company in solving the problem that you are trying to solve, it means you can solve it too. It means you can go on that same journey and you can bring new technology, new ideas, and a fresh perspective to that fight, which is incredibly exciting for me. We're not trying to be original, we're trying to be better. We're trying to do it better, faster, cheaper, and that's just the baseline price of entry. We then have to create the 10x experience, and we're going to create that 10x experience by finding those product prisoners, which we'll get into a little bit later. This is your key of how you beat your competition. I get excited because this validation is so important. CB Insights did the postmortem on 1,000 startup desks. We have a 90% failure rate in SaaS startups. That is gobsmacking. Of those 90% that fail, the biggest bucket of failure modes that CB Insights identified is people launching products that no one wanted and no one would pay for. But you do not have this problem when we identify competitors doing the exact same thing that you want to do. We know if that competitor has been around for a significant amount of time, they have significant revenue and a big team, we know that people in the market are willing to pay for the solution to that problem. That is exciting. We've just removed the biggest reason you might fail off the table. That is why I get excited, because there is a systematic approach to how you disrupt entrenched competition. I want you to turn that fear into excitement, because as a founder, you are a force of nature. You are something that the economy absolutely needs. You are like forest fire. When we look at a forest fire, it looks like a really devastating process, right? Fire comes through, burns down all the brush, all the trees are burnt out, towns and cities are destroyed, which is a human tragedy. But it is a necessary process for a healthy ecosystem in many parts of the world. We have to have forest fire because what happens is everything overgrows. We have sick and unhealthy trees and plants everywhere. The system is choking on itself. It's grinding to a halt. And along comes the forest fire, burns everything down. And yes, in its wake, we have utter devastation. If you are successful in your mission to disrupt a competitor, people will lose jobs. Investors will lose money. People will lose their businesses. There will be a lot of devastation left in your wake. You have to be okay with that. But in that devastation, we create the space for growth. We create the conditions for the new, stronger, healthier ecosystem to grow up around it. And that's what you do as a founder. Your job is to identify the areas of the economy that need disrupting, the areas of the economy that have grown old, stale, and stagnant. That is your superpower as a founder. Not many people have this superpower, but if you do and you are disruptive, you have to find big competitors to disrupt. It is your duty to find the slow, old, bloated competition and disrupt them, because the market and the economy needs you to do that. Okay, so turn that fear into excitement, because you've just found that the biggest failure mode has been removed from the table and someone has given you the blueprint of how you do this. Someone's done it before. We just now need to do it better. So if you choose to take on this fight, if you choose to take on a giant, how do we evaluate whether this is a giant you want to fight or not? Okay. A lot of us are really scared of the giants that we find in the market because from the outside, they still look fighting fit, right? They look like that mythical feature, the Goliath, the champion that is sent out to win all of the battles because they're such a hard opponent to defeat. But in my experience, companies that have grown to a certain size get unfit, fat, slow, old. They're ripe for that disruption. They start to put in departments into the business. They start to have a HR department, a legal department, a compliance department. And it is in those mechanisms within a corporation that the seeds for disruption are sown. And we're going to talk about something called the engagement gap a little bit later here. It is that gap that we're going to insert your company into that gives you the tools that you need to take their customers and turn them into your customers. So let's evaluate. Is this company still launching new, fresh products? Are they still executing at a high level? Do people still love their product, or do we have product prisoners? Okay, and I want to show you here the fights we don't want to take on. There are certain fights, there are certain companies that are big and they are still in their prime. Those are the ones you want to be really careful with. That's where it's like a scale up who is big and they are rapidly innovating. They are still launching product after product after product. They're knocking it out the park. Okay, that's a very hard fight to win, because not only are they bigger than you, not only do they have more resources than you, they are in an execution cadence which you're probably going to struggle to keep up with. We want the businesses who have stopped launching new things. We want the Kodaks who have sat on technology and suffered from that innovator's dilemma, that we can come along and eat their lunch. Okay, we want to be really careful with VC-backed competitors who have an endless war chest, because if you're going to try and slog it out with them toe to toe in a hand-to-hand combat, they will basically grow at a loss. They will send you out of business because they'll just bid on contracts, bid on pricing structures, or acquire customers in a way that actually costs them money, and they will do that for as long as it takes until you are insolvent. We need to be careful with that. And we need to be careful if that company is full of a team of absolute killers. These are people who are executing on big ideas in that consistent way. I would hate to be a competitor of Tesla right now. I would hate to be a competitor of OpenAI or someone like Webflow, you name it. Those organizations attract top talent from all around the world, and they are just incredibly difficult to defeat. So we're looking for big competition who is past its prime, that people moan about, they roll their eyes when it's mentioned, and they hate it. And this is how you disrupt that giant, that Goliath, who are past their prime. It's called the engagement void, the engagement gap. And this chart here is tracking the closeness of the leaders in the business and the customers. Inside this gap is where you can disrupt them, because I have a fundamental belief in product development, in innovation, is whoever is closest to the customer wins. Whoever can get the fastest loop going to learn about the customer's pain points and then iterate and solve it again and again and again and again will eventually outpace any of the competition, no matter how entrenched and how big it is. So when a company grows, what tends to happen is the delta, the distance between the leadership and the customers grows bigger and bigger and bigger. If any of you have ever worked in a big SaaS company, you'll know this to be true. You suddenly start having management layers put in place where, when the startup was small, the founder spoke to their customers every single day. And then they put a design and development team in, and a marketing team and a sales team. And now, the leader only speaks to a few customers. And then they put a layer of management in on top of that. And now the leader speaks to even fewer customers. And then they go public and they have to deal with a board and investors and investor relations. And suddenly those leaders are not speaking to any but a handful of their biggest customers. And it is in that gap that huge opportunity resides, because these customers become what we call the product prisoners. These are people who are begrudgingly paying for the service. They're looking for options. The business just doesn't know it yet. We'll dive into that a little bit later, a little bit more deeply. But this is the opportunity. Find the businesses where the leaders are completely disconnected from the customers and get close to those customers. Because then you can find these product prisoners, and these product prisoners will become your first customers. So what is this product prisoner? The product prisoners, as I alluded to, are people who continue to pay for a service, but they're not doing it with a smile on their face. They have one ear to the ground looking for options. They got one foot out the door. This is absolutely deadly to companies when this occurs, because this is the churn that exists in your business that is almost impossible to detect. So churn being the ratio of customers that are ready and are going to leave that month, let's say, your service. This is invisible churn because actually they've already mentally checked out of your product. They don't love your brand. They have bad interactions with the brand. They don't love the technology. And they're just hoping and dreaming that a founder comes along, becomes that forest fire, burns everything to the ground and creates a new product, and we have a new world to exist in. As soon as that happens, you don't just get a trickle of customers, you get a mass exodus. It's like a kind of 0 to 1 moment when everyone goes, oh my God, why am I even in this old product? If I can get out of my contract, I will jump ship. Okay, they are product prisoners because that business fundamentally must be solving a burning hair problem in order for them to stay. We talk about this all the time on this channel. Burning hair problems. It is their hair, the customer's hair is on fire. Their head is on fire. It is painful. It's a pressing, urgent problem that needs to be solved and cannot be ignored. This product that you're trying to disrupt likely solves a problem like that, because otherwise people would just cancel their subscriptions and the whole business would go away. They're sticky because they solve this burning hair problem. This is why these are so important to find as a tech founder, because if you find it, you have sticky customers. But you are going to go on a journey of getting closer to these customers than ever before. So we can think about a customer base as being a collection of fractal markets that exist in a business, okay? And the fractal is, there's just mini markets inside that business. There are the super enterprise customers, there are the mid-tier, there's the low tier. But even inside those tiers, we find customers that subscribe for very different reasonings, and they have very different pain points or pains that are left unsolved by the current product, okay? And it is these prisoners inside this fractal market that we must identify. I'm going to tell you a story about a product that I helped design and develop that did just this, right? There is a competitor in the market, been in there 20 years, 80% market share. Everyone knew them, everyone used them. They're tied in most of the customers to 3-year contracts. Really difficult space to compete. If we just tried as a product team to go toe to toe with that business, we'd have got absolutely nowhere very, very fast because no one would want it to move. We were the newcomers on the block. No one wanted to go through that whole painful element of change and disruption. And so they just stuck with the current solution, even if it was terrible. But what we identified is inside that competitor's customer base was a small cohort of product prisoners who had needs that were currently unmet. And they were so small, or there was few enough of them, that the main business either didn't know or did not choose to listen to their problems and left them unsolved. Their problems in this case were students who had complex care and safeguarding needs, or who were staying on the premise overnight. This is a safeguarding record management tool. And that entrenched business just was never going to solve that. So that problem existed unsolved. These customers used the product and then they built a series of custom spreadsheets on the side to solve the problems that they had. So we did something really clever. We just hyper-focused on those customers, solving those challenges first and foremost, because immediately we built outsized value in their eyes that could get over this painful hurdle of adopting a new product. They jumped in. And then we start the slow switch, okay? We start to rob monthly recurring revenue from our competitors' business and put it in ours. As our capability grows, there's slows. And if you're going to execute this plan in a way that is successful, you have to remain as stealthy as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can, because the Goliath has a lot of tactics that you do not have at your disposal. They could use lawfare. They could just bury you under lawsuits that are frivolous, that you end up having to spend years fighting. They know they're not going to win those lawsuits, but it's an expense. They get to take your little chess piece and chuck it off the board. They can spread propaganda and disinformation about you, or they can wage an unwinnable price war, or they can hyper-focus on the problem that those product prisoners now have, solve it before you, and they built brand equity with those people, so they will stay. Okay, so find the product prisoners that, if you are lucky enough, exist in a big enough quantity in the market that it doesn't even need to be a slow trickle, it can be quite a fast exodus from that product, and find the pain points that they have that are not being currently solved by the incumbent and try them on for size. There's going to be many of these subsets in your markets. Okay. Not all of them are worth going after. What you're trying to find is underserved product prisoners who are big enough in scale for you to basically make a business, a hyper-focused, niched product around, and then you'll get the ability to scale out, solve more problems, rob more customers when you do that. We talk about how you do this all the time on this channel. It's 2 ears, 1 mouth. You must go and find those product prisoners. You must go and pay them to come and speak to you. What is your experience of using this competitor's product? What drives you nuts? The interesting thing for me here with product prisoners is this isn't always technology that we need to build in order to pull them away. If your competitor has terrible customer service, you can just make that your product innovation. If you live in the UK or you know anything about the UK energy markets, there's a company that is scaling like mad called Octopus Energy. A huge rise to prominence in a very short amount of time in an old industry that had very little to no innovation in it. The innovation that Octopus Energy brought to the market was not better pricing, was not innovative new energy products. Yes, they had all of that. It's a requirement. It was simply not being terrible at customer service. So when you listen to their customer base, don't just focus on the technology. Focus on the service. Is their sales team really annoying? Do they hate the pricing structure? Is the contracts really stifling? Is it their commissions that they take out of the platform? What is it that is driving these people insane and causing them to look for those other options? And then hyper focus on that, okay? This hyper focusing is how you choose your battlefield. David won against Goliath, not by might, not by brawn, but by coming into that fight with precision, force, and a technological advantage. We need you to do the same thing. We need you to walk into that arena with the technological advantage of the sling, right? And we need to plonk a stone straight onto the forehead of your competitor, taking them out of the fight immediately. You cannot go on this journey of taking on big competition with a haphazard approach where you're just like, yeah, I'll work it out in the way. Because they'll probably discover you exist. And if you start becoming enough of an annoyance, they'll just take you off the board. So we need to be stealthy. We need to be precise so that when you go fast with focused action in order to get to that point of breakthrough where we can build the beachhead market, right? We can build that defensible position in the market where you've robbed enough of their product prisoners that you have good enough annual recurring revenue that keeps you afloat, staves off any legal battles or anything like that. And then the real slog begins where you just slowly over time take more and more and more market share by listening to customers, innovating, and making sure that you remain close to customers as that founder, okay? The process for doing this is pretty simple. You must identify your competitors' weaknesses. Identify where they've grown old and stale, where their technology is creaking at the seams, and now there's new ways of doing things. Better, faster, cheaper, okay? Identify those weaknesses. Implement change and innovation into your business that directly addresses those weaknesses. Again, we mentioned the point of customer service being something that you could innovate around, okay? The action to implement there would be go and partner with someone who is world-class at customer service, or go and study businesses that are world-class at customer service and model your customer service department after that. Success leaves clues. You don't need to work this out. Or it might be change the platform fees, the pricing structure, do monthly pricing instead of 3-year contracts. Whatever it is, make your business the complete antithesis of what everyone hates about the incumbent. And then we have to leverage your vulnerabilities. So When you are new into the market, you're going to face a lot of objection from those customers because of this inertia tax, right? We talk about this in the book, on the channel all the time. The pain and the gain, your gain of adopting your product must outweigh the pain. But a lot of the pain that you experienced in the early days of your market is you're the newcomer. What if your solution doesn't work? What if you go out of business? What if you're a scam? What if your promises don't hold up in the light of day? So we must identify your weaknesses and leverage your vulnerabilities into those strengths, okay? Someone in the Founders Forum community did this really, really well the other day. They closed a £2,000 contract with a customer before their product even exists. And they did that in a way by leveraging the vulnerabilities. They have huge competition in their market that have been around for years and years and years. And the customer objected to it, said, look, why wouldn't we just go with the tried and tested people who have all the case studies, they have all the funding, all the budget. And this founder, she said something really clever. She went, look, we are small. You have to recognize those vulnerabilities. If you're going to turn them into strengths, if you're going to wear them as armor, you must recognize them first. We are small. You're correct. We are risky. However, here's the thing that I know. Because we are small, you will be our most important customer that we have. You will have direct access to the founding team. You'll have WhatsApp access to me. Any bug you face, we'll fix it. Any feature you want, we're there for you. If you go with the big competitors, you're a tiny fish in a big pond. You won't have direct access to the founding team. You'll have to go through a support process of 2 or 3 weeks before they listen to any change. And they haven't launched a new product in 3 or 4 years. So take that risk with us. We're looking for people who want to dive in and become the most important customers to a smaller business. That's an example of how you take a weakness of being small and turn it into a strength. Okay? So you must identify your vulnerabilities and use them as your strengths to convince those people to make that jump. And then you just innovate around their current pain points and problems that they have. Okay? Because that's how you solve the inertia tax. That's how you stack enough gains in their eyes to go through the painful process of changing supplier, changing product. They've been using it for 5 years. They've got habits built in around it. As we always say, no one gets fired for maintaining the status quo. Even if that status quo is terrible and sucks and is broken, that's fine. That's the status quo. But if they go for a new product and you guys don't deliver on your promise, they're in trouble. So there is a huge amount of pain or inertia in adopting your product. You must stack the gains. The gains can be technology, it can be service or perceived value. You're trying to create the 10x experience. You cannot just be better, faster, cheaper. You've got to be a combination of those and really get close to that customer so that you can create a remarkable experience. That is how you are going to take this on. You're going to get excited that you have competition in the market. This is a good thing. Someone has validated that this is possible for you already. You're going to choose the right giants to disrupt. You're not going to go after markets where there's tons of innovation, tons of investment, and people are launching and spitting new products out as we speak. That's hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's a lot harder than just disrupting an old, stagnant, and stale industry. You're going to find the product prisoners of your competitors. You're going to pay their customers to come and speak with you about the problems with their products. You're going to use 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen to what their problems are. It might not be the technology. It might be the service. It might be the values. It might be the pricing structure or contractual. And then you're going to choose your battlefields very, very carefully. What are you going to outcompete them on? How are you going to execute this playbook? How do you stay stealthy and hidden for long enough that you can actually build that beachhead market? How do you turn your vulnerabilities into your greatest strengths to convince the first few customers to come and join you? Okay, that is how you execute the David versus Goliath playbook. And I hope you now are getting excited about having competition rather than afraid.